Some women dream of candlelit dinners and roses. Emma just wanted to survive her shift at the hotel lounge without spilling another tray of champagne. She was tired, overworked, and invisible to the very people she served, until that night. When the city's most feared and desired CEO, Adrian Cole, walked through the glass doors, the air itself seemed to change. His presence was a storm in a tailored suit. Every gaze followed him. Every whisper carried his name. Emma tried not to look, tried not to care, but fate has a cruel sense of humor. Balancing a tray of drinks, she turned too fast, and the sharp edge of a broken glass snagged his perfect sleeve. The sound of fabric tearing echoed like a crime in the glittering silence. Her stomach dropped. She expected fury, humiliation, to be fired on the spot. But Adrian Cole didn't explode. Instead, his cold, unreadable mask shifted into something dangerously human, a smirk, a spark. His words, low and deliberate, disarmed her completely. That was the best part of my day. Emma didn't know it yet, but that torn sleeve was the first thread unraveling both their lives. Because once a billionaire decides you've caught his attention, the story is never simple and it's never safe. Rain claws at the tall glass, and the hotel lounge hums with a practiced softness that feels like a lie. I move through it on aching feet, tray balanced, smile pinned in place, counting the breaths between tables the way other people count blessings. 3 shifts in 2 days, 2 complaints yesterday, 1 supervisor who says, "Sharpen up, Emma," like I can file myself against the edge of his voice. Outside, the city is slick and electric, smeared in red and white haze. Inside, marble and brass gleam. Perfume floats above citrus and gin. Laughter drifts, then settles. None of it belongs to me. I pass unseen through money's private weather and murmur, "Of course," right away. Being invisible is safer than being noticed, except when invisibility feels like drowning in clear water. I feel the slip before it happens, a twitch in my wrist as the tray skews when someone's knee hooks out from an ottoman. The lemon twist shivers at the lip of a martini. A bead of condensation leaps. I clamp down, steady, breathe. "Excuse me," I whisper, even though it wasn't my fault. "Emma, table 7. Lila says at the service stand, sliding the request into a tone that tastes like a hug. 3rd coffee. He wants it respectably strong. Respectably strong is my specialty, I say, and try to make it true. She follows my eyes to the clock. "You're on thin ice." Thin ice implies something is still holding me. I'm skating on rumor. One more mistake and I'm back at the temp agency with a smile I can't afford. "Got it," I say, meaning please let me get it. I weave toward table 7. Stormlight flickers against the glass. He sits with his back to the window, all clean lines and stillness. Dark suit, pale shirt, hands with a quiet certainty. He doesn't check the time. "Your coffee," I say, setting it down so gently the saucer barely murmurs. He looks up, gray eyes precise, like he navigates the world with a ruler. Important in a way that makes other people small. "Thank you," he says, calm without effort. He sips, evaluates. "Respectable," he says, making the word sound both amused and exacting. "I'll strive for scandalous next time," I say before I can stop myself. Something almost moves at the corner of his mouth. "Don't get yourself fired for me." "Trust me," I say. "Tonight I'm doing everything I can to avoid that." I pivot away. Thunder grumbles. A busboy passes with a crate of glasses that sing. I drop a towel over a slick patch and keep moving because motion is mercy. If I stop, exhaustion will bite. "Refill on 3, Lila mouths. My tray blooms with carafes, tea, tiny cream pitchers placed like chess pieces. The wood bites my palm. My shoulders protest. I ignore them. Pain is background music. Halfway to table 3, someone barks a laugh and the tray tilts. Nothing falls. My heart bolts. I reset my grip and think of Michael. He texted earlier. "Don't worry. He lies with the tenderness of someone who knows I'm counting coins. The pharmacy's reminder pinged at noon like a dare. I don't think about tomorrow. When I circle back to table 7, he's not alone. A woman sits across from him, polished as a river stone, eyes quick and dismissive. She places her hand over his cup when I reach for it. He doesn't need more caffeine, she tells him, like I'm not there. You need sleep. He slides the cup out from under her fingers as if moving the moon is casual. I need clarity, he says mildly. She taps a rhythm. Promise you'll be civil tomorrow. I'm always civil, he says, glancing at me for a second that feels longer. Am I not civil? You're a storm pretending to be a lake, I think. Perfectly civil, I say, and appropriately respectful of respectable coffee. The almost smile again. I pour, step away. The storm presses its ear to the window. At the service station, Lila slips me half a granola bar. Eat, she orders. I'm not hungry, I lie, then break off a bite. Across the room, table 7's occupant has angled his chair to watch the lounge. He doesn't fidget. He calibrates. Know who that is? The bartender murmurs. Respectable coffee enthusiast? I offer. Adrian Cole, he says. Cole capital, quiet empire, loud results. The name drops like a coin in a well. Oh, that explains the heavier air. I liked him better as table 7, I say. Lila squeezes my wrist. Keep breathing, she says. He puts his pants on like everyone else. Custom, the bartender mutters. Lila flicks him with a towel. I build a tray. Almonds, bourbon neat, ginger ale, olives. The tray is a map I know by heart. My shoulder twinges. My brain tallies rent. I walk like failure is a rumor. 2 steps past table 7, a voice says, "Excuse me," low and even, and I pivot. He's standing now. The woman has vanished. He holds out his saucer. A refill before I go, he says, polite and precise. Of course. I set the tray on the nearest empty table to free my hands. I lean to pour. Lightning whitens the window. The table's leg wobbles. The tray's lip kisses his cuff. There's a soft betrayal of fabric on metal. My breath stops. The sleeve tears. It's clean, almost quiet, a neat parting along a seam. The cuff loosens, revealing the edge of a watch that looks like it keeps secrets and time. The apology scalds my tongue. Shame flares hot and bright. My supervisor lifts his head. My hands hover near the damage as if proximity can mend. I'm so sorry, I say. I'll pay for it, With what, Emma? There's a tailor 2 blocks over. He sometimes stays open late. I can run. He studies the sleeve, then me. The pause is a held breath. I brace for the verdict that unspools my life. The storm hushes to listen. That was the best part of my day, he says. I blink. What? The lines at his eyes soften. He touches the torn edge with 2 fingers, almost curious. I've had a day made of sameness, he says. Rooms where nothing happens unless I make it. You did something real. You didn't mean to, but... He lifts one shoulder. It's a relief when something refuses control. I can still take it to the tailor, I say, compelled by a religion of repair. It's fine. He looks at my name tag. Emma. On him, my name sounds like a promise. Really. Your sleeve is only a sleeve. He tips his head toward the rain, and I'm about to be drenched. The laugh slips out, small and sharp. Sorry. Don't be. Warmth touches the edge of his tone. You should do it more. It lands like a gift I don't know how to unwrap. I'm used to minutes measured and utility assessed. I'm not used to someone urging me to keep something for myself. My supervisor is... I begin. Going to let you breathe, he finishes, then tells the man hovering. She's been excellent. 2 bland words that buy me oxygen. The supervisor evaporates. I force blood back into my hands. You don't have to... Neither do you, he says. Owe me a cuff. The lights hiccup and stabilize. He slips off the watch, tucks it into his jacket pocket. The torn fabric flutters. My tray waits on the wobble-legged table. The lounge resumes its rhythm. "I'll get you a to-go cup," I say. The rain. "Please." He considers me as if I'm more interesting than the storm. "And whatever chocolate the kitchen hides." I blink. "Hides?" "Every place like this does," he says. "Truffles, probably. The walk-in has truffles." "We don't—" I start, then give in. "We might." "I won't tell," he says, and the almost smile turns warmer. I go because motion keeps me from overthinking a sentence that shouldn't mean anything and somehow does. Marco catches me at the kitchen door. "If you're here for my truffles, I'll replace you with a robot arm." "He asked," I say. "The man at 7. 2, he says, dropping them into a paper cone. "Tell him to buy us better weather." When I return, the truffles have softened. I set down the to-go cup and the cone. He studies the sweets with the care of someone who builds cities and still remembers what sugar can fix. "You're a wonder, Emma," he says quietly. I look away. "Try not to tear anything else," I say, aiming for light. "I'll do my best." He slips a bill under the saucer, not showy. I don't look. He tucks the cone into his pocket, hesitates at the door when lightning turns the street to bone, then steps into the night. The torn sleeve flutters once and the storm swallows him. I stand there with the empty saucer, heat and cold arguing under my skin. Lila appears. "You okay?" "I tore his sleeve," I say. "He said it was the best part of his day." She tilts her head. "Then his day was a wall of meetings." "Or mine is," I say, but a quieter truth stirs. Maybe that sentence was a door. Maybe I've been living in the hallway so long I forgot rooms exist. I tuck the thought away and work. The storm keeps talking to the windows. Staff cycles through our rituals. Clear, wipe, pour, nod. Sometimes patterns misprint. Sometimes a seam gives and lets the weather in. I clock out a little after 1. The rain has softened to a steady soak. My coat is thin. My umbrella is missing 2 ribs. I walk anyway. The hotel glows behind me like a lantern someone forgot to snuff. Half a block away, I look back. I don't know what I'm looking for. A man in a torn sleeve. A sign. The door behaves like a door. At home, Michael's asleep on the couch with a textbook on his chest. I slide the book away and pull a blanket up. His cough will either wake him at 4 or skip the night out of mercy. I watch his breathing like I can steady it with my eyes. I make tea I don't drink and sit at the table with the burn mark from the last time I tried to boil away worry. I should budget. I should input tips into the spreadsheet I swear I won't touch. Instead, I see the line where the cuff parted, neat and absurd. I hear, "That was the best part of my day." Maybe he meant nothing by it. Maybe he wanted to make sure I kept my job. Maybe he likes the rare moment when the world resists his control. Maybe he saw me. The thought isn't safe. I let it live for 1 breath, then open the window to the storm and let it out. Sleep should come like a mercy, but my body is a ledger that refuses to close. I count the shifts left this week, the miles on my shoes, the pills in Michael's bottle, the corners I can cut without bleeding. If I lose this job, I lose the thin wall between us and panic. If I keep it, I lose pieces of myself in exchange. I press my palm to my chest as if I could steady the numbers. Instead, his sentence lands again, unexpected, impossible, and rests there like a warm stone. Before bed, I text Lila, "Did that actually happen?" She sends 3 knives and a heart. I plug in my phone, ease onto the mattress, and let the storm sing. My eyes close on a torn sleeve and a quiet voice, and something in me, curiosity, not hope, not yet, stretches like a cat finding sun. What would you do if the most intimidating man you've ever met suddenly smiled at your mistake? Morning peeled back the storm to a city washed clean, but Emma woke with rain still inside her bones. The apartment smelled like mint tea and laundry powder. Michael coughed, then went quiet. She checked the pill organizer, the hand-drawn calendar, and circled a date she feared. Rent. She breathed through the flutter, kissed her brother's forehead, and slipped into the corridor. On the train, she read the lines of strangers like receipts. Emma tucked her name tag into her bag and imagined herself without it. Just Emma, unmeasured. At the hotel, Lila slid a coffee across the staff counter. "You kept your job," she said. "Don't tell management," Emma replied. "And the sleeve?" He said it was the best part of his day. Either he's blessedly weird or you've got a story beginning. Emma stored the sound of her laugh like a small luxury. She changed into the uniform that turned her into service and pinned her hair with the same precision she used to balance trays. The lounge opened into morning light. Adrian Cole's world woke in glass towers. He preferred the office before it filled with voices. Silence made decisions easier to hear. He stood at the window, glanced at the neat tier his assistant had basted, and considered the odd comfort in the imperfection. "Your 9 o'clock is now 8:50, said Mara Quinn from the doorway. "And the board wants an agenda item called strategic temperament, meaning I should smile more," Adrian said, "or scorch less." She held out a tablet. "Also, legal flagged the acquisition memo. There's a leak somewhere." He accepted the tablet. "Find the seam." "I'm already pulling threads," Mara said. "How's the cuff?" "Honest," he said. Calls, recalculations, a salad that tasted like due diligence. Through it all ran an awareness of a woman who carried trays as if they were shields, who apologized like someone used to begging weather and men. Emma met the day by degrees: breakfast service, a VIP who believed kindness was weakness, a manager who could not hear himself breathing. Between tasks, she texted Michael to confirm he had taken his tablet and received a photo of him grinning with hair defying gravity. That face was why she folded into each shift instead of breaking. By mid-afternoon, the lounge filled with people who made deals over second espressos. A knot of conference guests sprawled across 3 tables and demanded the 4th without asking. Emma navigated politely. Her mother had called manners a last defense. While she stacked plates, a man in a charcoal suit watched her like a camera. "You're the girl from last night," he said. "I work here most nights," she said, steady. "I'm friends with Cole," he added, as if that were currency. "I'm friends with the dishwasher," she answered and kept moving. Mara arrived to meet the events manager about a charity gala. "Cole can't do the tasting," Mara said. "Send the flight to the office, or better. Let me choose now." Emma, passing with a tray of canapes, heard the line and said, "The smoked pear is the only one you won't regret tomorrow." Mara evaluated, took it, considered. "Noted," she said. "Your name?" "Emma." "Thank you, Emma." She turned back. "Double staff. And tell your sound team I don't tolerate feedback." At 6, Emma cut out early for Michael's appointment. In the clinic, she filled out forms with the impatience of long practice. The doctor delivered cautions. Emma translated them into shifts and coupons. On the way home, they split a cone of peanuts and called it dinner. Adrian left the office late. He could have sent anyone to the tasting, but control was a language he spoke more fluently than trust. In the back seat, the city folded around the car. He thought about the leak that kept moving just out of reach, and the seam that had given way when he'd needed proof the world still had edges he did not instruct. He told the driver to stop a block from the hotel, walked the rest, and stepped into the lounge. Emma wasn't on the floor. He found this fact both irrelevant and peculiarly noticeable. Lila caught his glance and lifted a brow. "Back for respectable coffee?" she asked. "Back for a decision," he said. "I'm here for the gala tasting. Mara will kill me if I pick anything asinine." "She trusts your mouth," Lila deadpanned. He almost choked. "She does." Emma returned while he was comparing 2 identical pastries. She changed course mid-stride when she saw him, the motion small and instinctive. He caught the move and filed it with other unusual signals. "Hello," he said quietly. "Hi," she replied, setting a check presenter. She stood a beat too long, then approached. "How's your sleeve?" "Philosophical," he said. "And yours?" "I don't own sleeves that expensive." "You own steadiness," he said. "That's rarer." She didn't know where to put the compliment. "Would you like another coffee?" "Please." She poured. He watched the arc like a ritual. When their fingers nearly grazed at the saucer's edge, a tiny static snap leaped, a nothing that felt like a beginning. He chose the smoked pear without knowing why. He left a tip that was generous but not insulting. As he turned to go, he paused. "I have a question," he said, the tone of a man used to answers. Emma waited. "How do you keep going when the day keeps taking?" "By making the smallest, nicest thing I can manage," she said. "A napkin folded properly, a joke with my friend, a coffee that doesn't lie. Then I let it be enough." He nodded. "I'll borrow that." "Return it clean," she said softly. He left with the city in his shoulders. She stood with the afterimage and the cooling pot and wondered at the mercy of being seen for a breath. If a powerful stranger asked you for the thing that keeps you going, would you give it away or ask for something in return? By mid-morning, Emma was a metronome of service. Pour, smile, pivot, breathe. The lounge had the easy brightness of a weekday crowd, the kind that ordered oat milk and asked for a corner outlet like it was a birthright. She was balancing a tray of cappuccinos when the front desk pager crackled and called her by name, a novelty that made every colleague glance up. She handed off the tray to Lila, wiped her palms on a towel, and went to the host stand. Tomas, who treated gossip like a sacred science, slid her a small cream envelope. Her name was written in a tight, deliberate hand. "Special delivery," he said, low and gleeful. Emma hesitated. If this was a complaint, protocol said open it away from guests. If it wasn't, protocol said it probably should be. She slipped into the service corridor and eased the flap open with a thumbnail. Inside, one linen card. "Meet me at the hotel cafe, 3 p.m. if your break allows. I owe you coffee. AC." Her body reacted before her brain decided how to feel. Heat climbed her neck. A wave of suspicion rose to meet it. Adrian Cole. Coffee. With her. The corridor air felt thinner. "Good news?" Lila asked, appearing with a stack of dessert menus she didn't need. "Depends on the definition," Emma said, handing her the card. Lila's eyebrows took a brief vacation above her face. "If your break allows," she mimicked. "Who writes like that? A duke?" "A CEO," Emma said, trying for dry humor and almost getting there. The word CEO carried a lot of zeros and even more risk. "You going?" "I need my job," Emma whispered. "And 3 p.m. is your break," Lila countered. "Also, if this is about the sleeve, maybe he just wants to reassure you that all is fin." "Or maybe he wants to make me get fired," Emma said, folding the card again like that might fold the possibility away. Emma had an internal list of rules. Don't take what isn't offered. Don't owe what you can't repay. Don't be alone with power you can't read. But curiosity had been awake in her since the storm, a cat that refused to settle. At 2:57, Emma dried her hands slowly, told herself she was just going to clarify, and crossed the lobby. The cafe's glass case glowed with pastries that looked like sculpture. A small storm of lilies perfumed the air. She saw him immediately the way people see a lighthouse. Mr. Cole at a corner table, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled. The left cuff showed a careful line of mending that looked almost intentional. He stood when he saw her, which did not help her heartbeat. "Thank you for taking the time," he said, everything crisp except the look in his eyes, which held an uncertainty she didn't expect. "I have 15 minutes, Emma said, aware of the clock like a pulse. "And a job." "You'll still have both when this ends," he said. "Please sit." She did, back straight, hands folded as if a test was coming. The espresso machine hissed behind them like an impatient dragon. "I wanted to apologize for the attention," he said, measuring words. The other night, and now. I'm aware of how it might look, and I dislike that. You invited me for coffee to apologize for inviting me for coffee, she said, before she could temper it. His mouth quirked. There it was, the almost smile. I invited you for coffee because I said something that mattered to me more than it should have. Your mistake was the best part of my day. That was true. It also wasn't a fair thing to put on a stranger with a supervisor and rent due. She blinked. The honesty reoriented the room. Honesty is efficient, she said. So is clarity, he answered, and reached inside his jacket for a slim folder. He didn't slide it to her, not yet. I have a professional proposition. Temporary. Boundaries explicit. Her instincts lit up like a switchboard. I'm listening, she said, and felt her stomach flip. My office is dealing with two events colliding, he said. An acquisition that will require precision and privacy, and the charity gala your hotel is hosting, which will require a strong stomach and better sound checks than last year. My assistant can do both. She shouldn't have to. I need a liaison who can sit between worlds for 2 weeks, mine and this one. Someone who reads a room without flaunting it, who doesn't flinch when pressure walks in wearing shoes. Someone who folds napkins into swans because it matters and will also tell me when I'm wrong. That sounds like 3 people, Emma said. I'd settle for one who knows how to keep the smallest, nicest thing going when the day keeps taking, he said quietly, returning her words from last night like he'd kept them warm. I thought of you. She stared at the mended cuff line. The idea dropped through her like a stone into water, sending out rings she couldn't yet read. You don't know me. I know what you are like under strain, he said. I know you're not impressed by proximity to me. That's an asset. You'd work with Mara and with the hotel events manager. Scheduling I can bend around your shifts, pay will make it worth having to bend. I can't leave my job, Emma said, the words automatic and true. I can't risk anything. You wouldn't leave. This would be a secondment. Your manager's boss owes me a favor. You'd be paid by us, insured by them, for the fortnight. He slid the folder. Outline, rate, NDA. If you want a lawyer to read it, we'll pay for the hours. Lawyer. Hours. Fortnight. The language of his world made her world feel small until she remembered Michael's laugh and the way she survived by noticing details. She noticed that his coffee remained untouched, that his right thumb pressed the folder's edge as if he needed to hold something steady, that he had come to her public place in the middle of a workday instead of summoning her to his floor. Choices. Boundaries. What would I actually do? She asked, opening the folder like a door she was not yet ready to step through and looking anyway. Keep my calendar human, he said. Attend the tasting final and prevent palate fatigue from becoming a public relations incident. Vet the gala seating so we don't put mortal enemies elbow to elbow. Coordinate hotel security with ours so no one who shouldn't be in a back corridor is. Sit in on 2 calls and tell me what the other side is trying not to say. If you care to, you can tell me when my tone is less helpful. Less helpful, she echoed, almost smiling. Mara calls it weaponized efficiency, he admitted. She's correct. I need someone who will not mistake bluntness for cruelty or kindness for weakness, and who will not confuse proximity for a promise. The last line was a gift and a shield. He was telling her what this was not, and what it would never be, because he understood power could warp a thing she might need. She breathed out. And the reason you're asking someone you met 12 minutes before you tore your cuff? She asked. He didn't pretend it was purely practical. Because my leak is internal, he said. Because I don't want to hire another person who knows my language so well they'll translate me out of it. Because you don't owe me anything, and I need that more than loyalty. Her mind did the math. 2 weeks at a rate that would cover a month of rent and the pharmacy. 2 weeks of being within range of a man who made the air feel charged. 2 weeks of learning how people who could buy cities still needed someone to hand them truth. And 2 weeks of danger. To her quiet, to her rules, to the brittle balance she'd built. I have a brother, she said. He's 16. Some afternoons I need to be home by 4. I'll move my 4, he said, as if the world could do that when he asked. For him, it often did. And if I say no, I'll drink this apology coffee, he said, lifting the cup at last, and Mara will promote one of the interns to explosive stress. Emma laughed despite herself. It broke the air. He let himself smile back, just enough. Why me? She asked again, softly, leaving space for the answer beneath the logistics. Because you looked me in the eye when I tried to make something easy for you, and you didn't let me, he said. Because you apologized for something that wasn't your fault but still made a plan to fix it. Because you live in a world that keeps taking and you find something to put back. That's useful. And rare. She closed the folder. A choice sat between them like a third chair. The cafe clock ticked, almost accusatory. Somewhere in the lobby, Lila was probably timing her to the second. Emma thought of the envelope, the careful script, the mended seam. The night he had said something that made her feel visible after months of being air. She feared the drop. She also feared becoming too good at never jumping. She took a breath, which felt like stepping over a line she'd drawn for herself and never dared cross. 2 weeks, she said. On the terms in that folder, with the schedule we negotiate. If my manager balks, this ends before it starts. I'll make sure he doesn't, he said, and didn't reach for her hand, which was the most respectful thing he could have done. When do we begin? Now, he said, then corrected himself. After you tell your friend you're safe and get permission from your supervisor. We'll do the first hour here in full view. You'll tell me which canapé will stain less on white shirts, and I'll try to be less helpful about everything else. Her mouth twitched. The beet tartlets are delicious and lethal. Noted, he said, standing as she did. They moved together toward the lounge like two people walking into separate storms that had decided to merge. At the host stand, Emma told Lila the truth in a low rush. Lila's eyes went wide, then bright. If he hurts you, I will poison his espresso, she said, earnest as a vow. I've signed an NDA, Emma said, holding up the folder. Please do not confess crimes near it. Lila hugged her anyway. Go, she whispered. Be better paid. Her supervisor started to sputter until Adrian materialized, polite as a scalpel. We've spoken with your GM, he said. Emma will be assisting our office as part of the gala liaison, compensated by us. Her schedule remains through you. The supervisor changed colors and nodded too many times. Back at the cafe table, Mara arrived like a gust with 3 devices. She took in Emma, the folder, the situation, and cut to the heart. If you're brave enough to do this, I'll be decent enough to make it survivable, she said, offering her hand. Welcome to the line between worlds. Emma took it. The skin-to-skin contact steadied her. The folder grew heavier and lighter at once. They worked 1 practical hour in public view. Emma moved a meeting that would have broken Adrian's day, negotiated with the banquet captain without surrendering the smoked pear, and pointed out that 2 of the gala's wealthiest donors had divorced since last year and should not be placed within sightlines unless the PR team wanted fire. Adrian watched with the satisfaction of a man who'd found a crucial gear and tried not to stare at the way her brow furrowed when she solved something silently. When her break ended, she stood. I have to go back to the lounge, she said, feeling the tug in both directions. You're already doing both, he said. We'll formalize the schedule this evening. As she turned away, his voice followed, softer than the machine's. Thank you, Emma. She didn't look back. Looking back felt dangerous. She went to refill a water carafe and realized her hands were shaking, not with fear alone, but with the jolt of being suddenly, terrifyingly in motion. By the time the gala banners went up, the city seemed to lean toward Adrian Cole. Emma felt that tilt when she stepped from the staff entrance into his office lobby. Brushed steel, quiet carpet, an aquarium of power where fish didn't dart. Mara met her at the turnstiles with a lanyard and a grin. "You came back." "Coffee?" Mara asked. "Respectably strong," Emma said. Adrian had rolled his sleeves. The mended cuff was a small, stubborn truth. "Bond call in 20, he said. "Listen, then tell me what they were saying between words. I don't speak Bond. You speak people." On the call, the other side smiled on flexibility while tightening deadlines like knots. When the screen went black, Emma said, "They want 3 days, but their lawyer kept checking the clock. Concede to 2. They'll believe they won." Adrian's laugh was quiet. "Weaponized empathy. Mara, adjust." "On it," Mara said, then flicked him a tablet. PR flagged a gossip column. Emma braced. The headline, "Cole's Mystery Brunette." A cafe photo. Her profile. Mostly uniform collar. A caption that guessed with glee. "My brother reads these," Emma murmured. "They require oxygen," Adrian said. "We'll deprive them." That afternoon, she learned donor choreography. Elbow touches, air kisses, terror of stains. With a clipboard and the world's smallest pen, she solved problems no one had asked her to solve. "Madame Dubois is allergic to almonds," she told the captain. "Table 12 needs a left-handed setting." Invisibility, she learned, lets you see. Between courses, Adrian stepped beside her, presence like a thunderhead that had decided to be merciful. "You're good at this," he said. "I trained for it my whole life," she said. "It's just called waitressing when you're underpaid." He almost smiled. "Thank you for the almond. You hired me to catch things." 2 days later, an email scheduled from Emma's account appeared sent at the wrong time, implying knowledge she didn't have, to a journalist who never should have been on any list. Mara pulled her into a cold room. "Breathe. We contained it. Optics still bad." I know. Audit trails show your login. Either you clicked something cunning, or someone used you. Leave your phone with me. Walk outside. I'll call you in 20. On the street, the sky pressed flat. Taxis grieving. Emma stared at the river's counterfeit stillness and chose not to disappear. When she returned, Adrian waited in the empty lounge. He didn't reach for her. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have been—" "No. You were targeted because I put you in range. Security is pulling video. Mara is tracing the IP. We'll make the truth louder." "You can't protect me from speculation." "I can refuse to sell your name to buy my balance sheet," he said, and the vow steadied something she hadn't known was shaking. The column escalated. An unnamed source claimed she'd accessed secure floors. The photo showed her leaving an elevator, anonymous and guilty. Michael closed the tab and pressed his shoulder to hers. "We can delete the internet," he offered. She laughed and didn't break. Next morning, a guard at Cole Tower asked for her badge. Before he could say suspended, Mara appeared paper crisp. "Temporary upgrade," she said. "Ms. Rivera's on my team." Emma slid on the new badge and met Adrian's gaze across the atrium, neutrality hiding ferocity. "Coffee?" he asked. "If I drink more, I'll vibrate. Let me sit in with legal." "Added," Mara said. "And for the record, whoever's playing with our edges thinks we won't cut back." Legal taught Emma new vocabularies for danger. She watched Adrian let lawyers shield him and realized allowing defense cost him something invisible. After, he stood at the window and let frustration crease his mouth. "I hate that you're learning us at our worst," he said. "I like that you don't pretend it's your best." "Enough," he said, not loud but with the authority. The camera lowered. "Subtle protection," she murmured. "Unsubtle impulse," he said. That evening, the hotel's sound check fed back with a weapons whine. Emma stepped on stage, angled the mic 2 degrees, killed a splitter. The shriek died. Staff clapped. Adrian, watching from the aisle, let pride show. "You don't flinch," he said later, marking the seating chart in pencil. "I flinch privately," she said. "Then I fix what I can reach." "What do you want that isn't survival?" he asked, voice careful as glass. It startled her. "To never choose between rent and my brother's pills," she said. "To read on Sundays. To stop borrowing the future from tomorrow." He looked at her like the answer mattered. "I can't promise the world," he said, "but I can promise to stop making yours harder." "Start by trusting me when I tell you the beet tartlets are a trap," she said, and he laughed, quick and low. Near midnight, Mara texted, "Corridor footage shows an IT contractor tailgating your keycard. Cap, head down. We'll move carefully." False relief cut through Emma. "So it wasn't me," she told the dark, and heard the other half anyway. Someone wanted it to look like me. The next afternoon, the board liaison cornered her near the elevators. "Small advice," the woman said in a voice polished by schools. "People assume what pictures tell them. Keep your head down until Mr. Cole forgets this experiment." "Thank you," Emma said, and did not lower her head. By the time the charts were taped and the last email sent, Emma had a plan that wasn't only survival. A spreadsheet, 3 hard conversations, and the refusal to surrender kindnesses. It included telling a billionaire when he was wrong and noticing when he was trying not to be. It also included this impossible hope that 2 people could stand inside a rising storm and decide not to drown each other, together anyway. Rain had cleaned the city, but the sky still held a bruise when Emma took the express elevator with a stack of revised seating charts hugging her chest. She'd memorized half the donors' grudges and 3 of their perfume notes. The elevator doors glided open onto the executive floor. Cooler air, thick carpet, voices tuned low to money's frequency. "Drop these outside board," Mara had said. "Then come back. Quick in, quick out." The boardroom door had never mattered to Emma until it did. It stood ajar, half an inch of spill, enough to leak an argument. She set the folder on the side table, turned to leave, and paused. The microphones inside were off, but confidence travels without amplification. "After the gala," a man said, voice coiled, "we introduce strategic temperament as an immediate remedy. We frame it as stewardship." "Stewardship," a woman answered, dry as gin. "Charming euphemism for a removal. And the leak? Perfectly timed concerns from the press? We don't point. We merely worry. The photo with the hotel girl? People will infer." Hotel girl. Emma's lungs forgot their choreography. She moved closer by a single breath, just enough to see reflections stitched in the glass wall. Silhouettes, expensive posture. She recognized the board liaison who'd warned her to keep her head down. Beside her, a silver-haired man, Whitaker from the directory, tapped a pen like a metronome. "Legal's morality clause?" the liaison asked. "Not needed," Whitaker said. "Temperament and performance suffice. We push the narrative. He's distracted, impulsive with hires, careless with boundaries. And the acquisition? If it stalls, all the better," he said. "His greatest strength is momentum. Remove it, and everything looks like risk." The words fell with surgical calm. Something cold moved up Emma's spine, anger wearing the careful manners of fear. Her fingers tightened on the folder. She pictured Michael, 16 and brave enough to joke about deleting the internet, and understood that silence had never once saved her. A chair scraped. "Close the door," the liaison said. Sudden. Emma slid back and pretended to be a person who belonged, studying a framed donor plaque with the gravity of a curator. Footsteps approached. She lifted the folder and walked. The door whispered shut behind her. She didn't look back. Downstairs, the office pulse swallowed her whole. She moved like a courier smuggling a match through a dry forest. When she found Mara, words piled behind her teeth. Mara clocked her face in a second. "Tell me," she said, tugging Emma into an empty conference room. The lights hummed. The skyline pressed its forehead to the glass. Emma repeated what she'd heard, line by sharpened line. Names, phrases, the cadence of Whitaker's certainty. the board liaison's cool pleasure in euphemisms. Mara didn't blink once. "You shouldn't have been there," she said, even and fast. "Also, thank you." "Do we tell him?" Emma asked. "He needs to hear it from you," Mara said, then softened because the ask was heavy. "He trusts Data. Give him detail. I'll corroborate what I can without burning you." Emma found Adrian alone in his office, jacket off, the repaired cuff a quiet banner of imperfection. He read the room before he looked at her face. Concern flared and smoothed. "What happened?" he asked. "I overheard something outside board," she said. "I'm not proud of the how, but you need the what." He didn't tell her not to speak. He didn't tell her to sit. He gave her his attention like a room with the doors locked. She told him everything. When she said hotel girl, his jaw set. When she said stewardship, his mouth tightened into something almost like a smile, but not. When she gave names, he didn't write them down. He filed them behind his eyes with the speed of someone who had spent years cataloging pain. "They plan to use the gala," she finished. "To make you look off balance. The photo, the leak, the word distracted." Silence took the room like weather. He went to the window and stood there long enough for her to doubt every choice that had brought her to this sentence. When he turned, the controlled man in the glass towers was gone. What faced her now was human, tired, cut, stubbornly alive. "Years ago," he said, voice low, "I built the first fund with a friend I called a brother. When it worked, he sold his stake to a competitor and told me it was just business. That same month, my fiancée returned her ring because I measured intimacy like risk. The board that year suggested I share leadership." Emma didn't move. The confession wasn't for pity, it was context. He set it between them like a bloodied blueprint. "Since then," Adrian said, "I've put my trust into structures and outcomes. They're predictable. People aren't. But structures don't stand by your bed when you can't sleep." He exhaled, a fraction too slow. "You've given me something people don't give me, the truth without an invoice attached." "You hired me to notice and say it," Emma said, throat tight. "I hired you to keep me honest about tartlets," he answered, and the almost smile flickered, worn and real. "This is more. Thank you. I wish you hadn't had to hear it." "It wasn't meant for me," she said, "but it was meant to hurt you. If my name makes that easier for them." The thought stuck. "My brother's school watches the news." He didn't flinch from the consequence. "We can manage headlines. We cannot let them manage reality." She wanted to protect him. She also wanted to protect herself. Both truths could live in one body and not cancel each other out. "If I stay on," she said carefully, "I need boundaries that will hold in a storm. I need you to be clear with me in rooms like that, and quiet with me where no one can hear." "Done," he said immediately, because he meant it. "You don't owe me this fight. If you want out, I will make sure leaving costs you nothing." For a second, exit looked back at her like a lifeboat. She could step off the line between worlds and go back to being unseen, unthreatening, unharmed by the parts of power that turn people to weapons. She thought of Whitaker's pen, tapping the tempo of his victory. She thought of the word stewardship and wanted to break it in her fists. "I'm not built to watch from the hallway," she said. "Tell me where to stand." The light changed on his face, subtle and seismic. "All right," he said. "Mara will close the side doors they think are open, and I'll bait the ones we choose. We make the gala impossible to spin. Order, warmth, no visible drama. We keep donors happy and reporters bored. And we bring receipts to a closed session before they can perform their concern." "And Whitaker?" she asked. "I'll move his calendar and his nerve," Adrian said, all precision again. Then, gentler. "The cost to you is not theoretical. If this connection becomes a tool, they'll use it. Say the word, and I ask Mara to swap you out." Emma found his eyes. Do you think this is only curiosity for me? No, he said, soft. I think you like the way your own courage sounds. She laughed, a small, surprised sound that loosened her chest. Maybe I like the way yours sounds when it isn't trying to be a wall. He came a step closer, then stopped with the restraint she respected. If there's a line, he said, we'll draw it together, and we won't let anyone else move it. She nodded. The room steadied. They worked, the three of them, a triangle of intention. Mara mapped access logs and found the contractor's badge request originated from Whitaker's office manager. Legal prepared phrases like scalpel blades, fiduciary duty, bad faith interference. Emma rewrote 1,000 small things. Staff rotation to prevent fatigue, staging so cameras saw generous light and nothing sharp, seating that placed Whitaker between two donors who preferred to talk about art. She even bribed the trumpet section to tone down their volume during speeches. It felt like threading a needle in a windstorm. It felt like purpose. At dusk, Adrian stood beside her in the humming quiet of the ballroom. Chandeliers held their breath. The mirrored walls multiplied them into a galaxy. Thank you, he said. No CEO mask, no rhetoric. For the truth, for not running. You made it possible to stay, she said. That counts. If we manage this, he said, glancing up at the lights, I'll owe you more than coffee. I don't want what they'll assume, she said, pulse quickening. I want a future where my name doesn't get used as a weapon. Then we'll build it, he said simply. They didn't touch. They didn't need to. The space between them held something tensile and bright, an agreement that read like a promise to themselves first. The city darkened around the glass. Somewhere, a column drafted its careful outrage. Somewhere, a headline waited with its teeth out. Emma rolled her shoulders, felt the ache of a long day threaded with new resolve, and thought of Michael's ridiculous hair and the way he said, "We can delete the internet." She smiled. Would you risk your entire future for someone who makes you feel seen for the first time? The week narrowed to a blade. Emma felt it in the way doors seemed to close a fraction faster, in the way voices lowered when she entered a room, in the way her own name sounded when someone else used it. Too loud, too exposed. She arrived at the hotel early to help reset the ballroom after a late rehearsal. The chandeliers were still dim. The air held last night's citrus and polish. Lila pressed a coffee into her palm and tried for a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Security from Cole Tower called the front desk, Lila said. They're looking for you. Cold spread through Emma's ribs. Why? Didn't say. Mara texted she's on her way. Lila squeezed her wrist. Whatever it is, breathe. Mara appeared 10 minutes later with a folder thin as a knife. Her voice was brisk because gentleness would have broken them both. We have a problem. I didn't send anything, Emma said, the defense arriving before the accusation. Mara laid out printouts. A time-stamped login from Emma's badge, a download of a confidential board packet to an external drive, and footage of someone in a staff hoodie leaving the executive file room. The grainy still caught only a jawline under a cap. The badge ID in the corner was hers. Someone cloned my card, Emma said. You know that's possible. I do, Mara said. Our audit puts the initiation point at a workstation registered to Whitaker's team. But those screenshots will be what the board sees first. PR is spooked. Legal wants distance until we can show the rest. Distance, Emma repeated, the word oddly soft. It's a tactic, not a verdict, Mara said. Cole's in with counsel now. We'll push back. In the meantime, her phone buzzed. She glanced. They've already called the hotel GM. You're suspended from the gala floor, pending clarification. I'm sorry. Suspended, Emma said, as if the syllables might rearrange into something survivable. She pictured the spreadsheet on her kitchen table, Michael's tablet reminders, the rent notice circled in red. Air thinned. Go home, Mara said. I'll handle press inquiries. Keep your head down. Don't read a thing. I have a brother, Emma said, because truth anchored her. I can't hide. I know, Mara said, and the cool in her tone cracked for a second. We're going to fix this. Emma packed her lanyard and walked out through the service corridor because the front entrance had sprouted cameras. The elevator felt too small for breathing. On the street, a man with a microphone called her name as if he owned a piece of it. She kept moving until her phone rang with a number she knew by heart, the school clinic. Ms. Rivera? Michael fainted after PE. We've contacted the on-call physician. He's conscious, but we recommend evaluation. Her world telescoped. I'm on my way. At the clinic, disinfectant and worry shared the room. Michael lay pale and stubborn on a narrow bed, insisting he felt fine-ish. Emma kissed his knuckles and said everything she could not afford to say out loud. Stay. Please stay. She texted Lila. Running late. She texted Mara. With Michael. Then she put her phone in her bag and tried not to think about the internet even existing. On the other side of town, Adrian sat at the head of a conference table while outside counsel stacked words like walls. Issue an internal note, one advised. Place Ms. Rivera on leave. Confirm cooperation. Express respect for the process. Do not characterize her. She is innocent, Adrian said. Characterization is accurate. Accuracy isn't the point, the lawyer said, gentle and implacable. Optics are. If you don't create separation, the board will cite it this afternoon as failure to mitigate. Mara slipped in at the back, eyes saying later, I'll brief you, and now do not sign anything irreversible. Adrian felt every hour of the last week settle across his shoulders and swung his gaze to the window. Gray city, wet metal, a skyline he had learned to bend with spreadsheets and will. People are not spreadsheets. He looked back at the document. Say she's temporarily relieved of liaison duties pending verification of credential misuse, he said. No mention of suspicion, no insinuation. She retains her hotel role. The hotel has already suspended her, the lawyer said. Adrian's jaw tightened. They jumped, he said. I'll deal with that. He signed because the structure demanded sacrifice to keep the engine moving and because he believed, with a faith that hurt, that this distance could be temporary. He told himself he was protecting her. He wondered which part of him was lying. The statement hit the lobby screens before Emma reached the apartment. A neighbor texted a link with a string of question marks. On the sidewalk, 2 reporters waited on folding patients. She got past them by not making her face a story. Upstairs, the kettle refused to boil any faster under her shaking hands. Lila called. I'm so mad I could chew glass, she said, a terrible comfort. The bar staff is on your side. The dishwashers are threatening to strike, which is not helpful, but adorable. I have to go back to the clinic in an hour, Emma said. He scared them. He scared me. I'll bring soup later, Lila said. Don't look at your phone. Emma looked at her phone. Headlines pinned her to a version of herself she didn't recognize. Hotel girl placed on leave. Mystery brunette at center of coal storm. A speculative podcast used the word climber with cheerful cruelty. She threw the phone into a drawer and closed it like sealing a trap. Adrian called. She stared at his name glowing on the drowned screen and answered because he had promised not to make her chase his voice. I hate this, he said, skipping preamble. I know, she said. I signed a note that puts you at arm's length, he said, each word heavy. I did it to buy time. I did it because I intend to shove the truth down their throats at 4 o'clock, and I can't do that if they've mapped me as reckless. She sat on the edge of the bed. The sheet was cold beneath her palms. What do you need me to do? His breath hitched, a tiny break he covered with discipline. Stay off the floor. Don't answer questions. Keep Michael safe. Let me take the hit in the room. A silence opened, a small canyon between 2 phones. This feels like you throwing me to the wolves to keep the board warm, she said, not sweetening it. I know how it feels, he said softly. I am asking you to let it feel like that for 6 hours so I can make it not be true. 6 hours. A lifetime. She closed her eyes. All right. I'll call after, he said. Emma. What? I am sorry. She put the phone down and braced herself on the dresser like she could lean against the future. The apartment had never felt so full of air and not enough oxygen. At 3, the clinic called back. They wanted to keep Michael overnight for observation. Precaution, the nurse said. Emma heard another bill. She packed a bag and walked him past the waiting area where a muted TV scrolled her name. Hey, Michael said, tugging her sleeve. We can switch it to cartoons. They smiled together on purpose because they refused not to. In the boardroom, Adrian laid out the audit trail, the access logs, the contractor tailgating video, the procurement records that tied a shell vendor to Whitaker's office manager. He didn't raise his voice. He used the board's diction until it cut. If you move against me tonight, he concluded, you do it knowing you are rewarding someone who engineered a breach to create the appearance of one. Whitaker's pen stopped tapping. The liaison's lips flattened. The room did what rooms do when confronted with liability. It stalled. Appreciated, someone said. We should, verify all this with internal. We have, Mara said from the door. She placed a thumb drive on the table like a bullet. Independent forensic report, and an email from the contractor who thought he was selling routine access for cash. Good, the chair said, tight. We'll convene after the gala. Adrian's victory tasted like metal. He walked out into a hallway that smelled like carpet glue and restraint. The statement on the lobby screens still rotated. It would keep rotating until he replaced it with something better. He texted Emma. Done soon. Coming to you. Emma sat by Michael's bed and watched the monitor draw his heartbeat like a cautious wave. She tucked a blanket tighter, smoothed his hair, and listened to the radiator hiss. Her phone buzzed and skittered across the bedside table. A new headline crawled, Cole distances from aid as questions mount. The photo they chose hurt because it was kind, her smiling at something Lila said, oblivious to the camera. The caption was not. She turned the screen face down. Hopelessness wasn't a flood. It was a slow seep through every gap in the caulking. The room dimmed as afternoon closed into evening. Michael slept. Machines kept time. Across the city, a ballroom glittered without her. Adrian reached the hospital as the sky tipped to violet. He carried the guilt of a document with his signature on it and the conviction that he had done the wrong right thing. Security asked him to wait. Visiting hours were strict. He stared at the floor tiles and tried not to imagine her reading the note without hearing his voice first. In the quiet room, Emma sat with her fingers pressed to her mouth and the fierce, helpless love of an older sister who had run out of fixes. She thought about the coffee he had not drunk, the sleeve she had torn, the door he had opened, and the way choices sometimes felt like betrayals dressed as strategies. For the first time since the storm, she wondered if she had been foolish to walk through. In another wing, an elevator opened and closed, carrying a man who had built an empire on momentum and was only now learning what it cost to stop. He leaned his head against the cool metal and understood with clean clarity that pushing her away to protect her had not saved anything. It had simply left both of them alone in 2 different rooms, listening to 2 different machines, measuring damage in separate silences. The nurse dimmed the room until the machine's soft beeps felt like a lullaby that didn't quite soothe. Emma sat at Michael's bedside with her hands wrapped around a paper cup gone cold, watching his eyelashes tremble against pale skin. She'd spent the afternoon being named and misnamed by strangers. Here she was only a sister counting breaths. The knock was gentle, almost apologetic. Adrian stood in the doorway with the restraint of a man who understood that hospitals were cathedrals for humility. No jacket, sleeves rolled, the mended cuff a sober line against his wrist. Security had tried to turn him back. He'd waited anyway. He looked older in this light, less lacquered, more true. Is it all right? He asked. Emma nodded and glanced at Michael. He's sleeping. They're keeping him overnight. Adrian moved to the empty chair opposite her and didn't sit until she gestured. Even then, he kept a careful distance, as if closeness needed consent. "I came as soon as I could," he said, voice low. "I should have come sooner." "You signed the note," she answered. She didn't make it an accusation. She didn't spare him the fact. "I did," he said. "I hate that you read it in a room like this." He met her eyes and didn't look away. "It bought me 6 hours to stop a coup. It also hurt you. Both things are true. I am sorry." The apology was not ornamental. It landed and stayed. Emma's first instinct was to step back from its warmth. Her second was to let it touch what was raw. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "My life has rules. Keep my head down, keep my job, keep Michael healthy." Cole Capital wasn't in the manual. "For a long time, neither was trust," he said, a half smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I am learning the cost of it the expensive way." Silence opened, not empty but attentive. The hum of the vents, the plastic rustle of a nurse's gown in the hall, the steady rise and fall of Michael's chest. Emma traced her thumb along the seam of the cup. He watched and didn't interrupt. "You told me to stay away today," she said at last. "You weren't wrong. But if you ask me to keep my distance at the gala, then lose control of the room because you didn't have the person who knows where the beet tartlets hide, I'll resent you for it." His breath left him on a sound that was almost a laugh. "We cannot have that," he said. "I need you. Not as cover, not as a symbol, as someone who sees angles I miss." Emma closed her eyes and felt the ache of relief. "Then be specific," she said. "Admit what you need and what you can't have." "What I need," he said, counting it out with the precision he applied to line items, "is a gala that refuses drama, a seating plan that starves Whitaker of allies, a sound check that will not give the tabloids a soundtrack, donors pre-briefed so they do not panic at the word leak, and," he hesitated, "a way to break the narrative that I am careless and you are a mistake." "What you can't have?" she asked. "You on the floor at the start," he said, wincing at how it felt to say it out loud. "The hotel suspension stands for now. If you're visible too early, they'll make you the headline they wanted." Emma swallowed disappointment that was part pride, part longing to prove herself. "Then we work with the rules," she said, the way she did when a patron insisted on oat milk the kitchen didn't have. "You keep me out of frame until the room is steady. I will be close enough to fix a failure if it starts to cascade." He leaned in, intent. "What failure?" "They tried sound once," Emma said, remembering the feedback scream she'd strangled with a twist of the mic. "If you were Whitaker and you couldn't nuke the night with a board vote, you'd settle for humiliation. Microphones, lights, the run of show, anything that turns order into chaos while cameras roll." "Redundancy," Adrian murmured. "Spare board, backup generator, a tech who answers to no one but us, and a silent checklist taped under the podium," she added. "The fixes no one sees, the 2-degree tilt that kills a scream." He blinked, then nodded, as if she'd just handed him a keystone. "Mara can wire it in. What else?" "People," Emma said. "You're brilliant with the abstract. They're bringing knives wrapped in napkins. You need bodies between you and the cuts. Put Mrs. Dubois and the ambassador at Whitaker's table. They'll talk about art and hand him nothing sharp. Seat the liaison where she can watch your success and not touch it." Adrian's mouth tilted. "Your pettiness has ethics." "It's not pettiness," she said. "It's hospitality as defense. Also, pre-brief 2 donors you saved in the last recession. If they offer you warmth in the room, the cameras will see more than a CEO. They'll see a human being worth keeping." He looked at her the way he'd looked at a spreadsheet that finally balanced after months of refusing. "Done," he said. "What about you?" "I'll be where you can find me and they can't," Emma said. "The service corridor behind the stage. Earpiece if Mara allows it. If something swings, I push it back with etiquette or elbow grease." He exhaled and, for the first time since the storm, let gratitude show without polishing it. "I shouldn't have asked you to carry any of this," he said. "But I am a better person with you in the blast radius than I am on the safe side without you." Her laugh was soft and incredulous. "That is the worst compliment," she said, then softened it. "And the truest." He reached into his pocket and pulled out something folded tight. For a heartbeat, she thought he'd brought a contract. It was a thin strip of fabric, his torn cuff seam, carefully snipped during the repair. He set it on the bedside table like an offering. "You said rules," he murmured. "Here's mine for tomorrow. I won't hide the beginning. I'm wearing the mended shirt. If anyone asks, I tell them the truth, that a stranger tore it, and I remembered how to feel. I want them to see that I am choosing honesty over polish." Emma's throat went hot. She touched the scrap, felt the fine weave catch on her fingertip. "They'll spin it." "Then they'll spin me as a man who doesn't pretend," he said. "It's a risk I will not outsource to you." She nodded, and something inside her clicked into place, an old survival gear meshing with a new choice. "After the speeches," she said, "you release the forensic report, not to one outlet with a price, to 3 that care about documentation. You publish the vendor ties and the shell company. You don't swing at Whitaker, you make the room watch him sweat." "And you?" he asked. She looked at Michael, who stirred and settled, the monitor drawing calm loops. "I will not let them tell him who his sister is," she said quietly. "That's my job." Adrian sat back, as if something unclenched between his shoulder blades. "Emma," he said, her name a vow. "I will fix what I broke today, not with statements, with choices that cost. I will not ask you to believe that without proof, but I am asking you to let me try." She didn't make him beg. She didn't make it easy. "Tomorrow is proof," she said, "and not just because of me. Because you will stand in a room where it would be simple to be a mask, and choose not to." He accepted the condition like a sentence he wanted to serve. "Then tomorrow," he said. They sat in companionable quiet. In the hallway, a cleaner's cart rattled, then steadied. Michael sighed and opened his eyes, the brown of them coming back to the room. "Hey," he croaked, squinting at Adrian. "Is that the guy with the sleeve?" "That is the official title," Emma said. Adrian stood, suddenly unsure in a way that made Emma forgive him a little more. "I'm Adrian," he said. "I brought terrible cafeteria coffee." Michael looked at the cup. "You're forgiven for everything except the coffee," he said, then drifted back. They smiled into the hush. Emma stood too and walked Adrian to the door. The corridor light made a halo out of the antiseptic sheen on the floor. He paused like a man who had spent his life leaving rooms before he felt anything and was choosing not to. "If you need me before tomorrow," he said, "for anything that is not my empire, call." She nodded. "Go get some sleep, Cole." He hesitated. "Adrian," he corrected low, "if you want." "Adrian," she said, and the syllables settled like a stone in a river, solid, redirecting the current instead of trying to stop it. After he left, Emma sat with Michael and rewrote her rules on the back of a visitor's sticker. "Keep my head down, yes, but lift it when truth requires. Keep my job, yes, but not at the price of my name. Keep Michael healthy, always, and teach him that love sometimes looks like staying when leaving would be easier." Across the city, Adrian walked into his apartment and didn't turn on the lights. He stood at the window and looked at the reflected man wearing a scar he had decided to make public. He had built a kingdom on control. Tomorrow he would stake it on honesty and the strength of a bond with a woman who had turned out not to be a distraction, but a compass. He texted Mara 3 words: backup, redundancy, seat map. She replied with a thumbs up and a knife emoji he pretended not to understand. Then he set an alarm for too early, slid the torn cuff scrap from his pocket to the nightstand beside it, and let sleep come like a truce he intended to enforce. The ballroom bloomed like a constellation, glass, gold, a hush that pretended it wasn't hungry for spectacle. Emma stood in the service corridor behind the stage, a headset tucked under her hair, clipboard pressed to her ribs. She could feel the room's pulse through the wall. Laughter held a half-second too long, silver making its small winter sounds. Mara's voice crackled in her ear, brisk and unflappable. House at 90%. Donor clusters stable, tech in position. You good? 2 degrees off on podium mic, Emma said, an old instinct threading into new purpose. I'm on it. She slipped into the wings, all soft shoe and intent, and nudged the gooseneck down just enough to kill the shriek before it ever lived. The bandleader caught her eye and tipped his head. Tempo shaved a hair. On the floor, Mrs. Dubois had Whitaker discussing a retrospective at the museum. The ambassador contributed a benign story about lighting budgets. Whitaker smiled with the patience of a man trying to lift a knife wrapped in velvet. Adrian watched from the foot of the stage. He'd chosen the mended shirt. The fine line at his cuff made honesty visible, a quiet dare to anyone who preferred polish to truth. He felt the room's appetite for a falter and steadied his breathing against it. You're on in 5, Mara murmured, and he nodded, eyes finding the shadow where Emma waited. The MC warmed the crowd. Plates returned to their stations. Laughter rose and thinned. Emma checked the silent checklist she'd taped beneath the podium. Angle, gain, spare mic, stage left exit, and let the ritual center her. In her ear, a new voice cut across their channel, breathless. Issue, the floor tech whispered. Teleprompter file swapped at the lectern. Script's wrong. Define wrong, Mara said. Reads like a eulogy. The tech deadpanned. For fiscal prudence. Emma's stomach clicked cold. She slid to the console and skimmed lines scrolling on the preview. Passive language, doubts woven into praise, phrases that would sound like apology under a camera's eye. That's a plant, she said. Whitaker wants him to speak fog. Fix? Mara asked. Kill the prompter, Emma said. We go noteless. Adrian speaks to hearts. The screen will only make him sound like paper. Load the real speech as backup to the side monitor in case he blanks. Copy, Mara said. You tell him. Emma moved to him in the brightness between wings and stage. Up close, the cuff's mend was cleaner than memory, thread like a silver whisper. She spoke low. Prompter is compromised. I think you should speak without it. A beat where fear could have entered and didn't. All right, he said. What do I need? Truth, she said. And the story of the torn sleeve. Show them who you are before anyone tells them. His gaze flicked to her mouth, then returned to her eyes, a gratitude that wasn't performance. Stay where I can see you, he said, then stepped into the lights. Applause rose, automatic, curious. He waited until it softened. Thank you for gathering for what matters, he began, voice clear and unhurried. Before we celebrate the work we're doing together, I want to start somewhere, small. He slid a hand to his cuff and, without flourish, folded his jacket open so the mended seam showed. A murmur rippled, 1,000 instincts recalibrating. A few nights ago, I tore this sleeve, he said, smiling at the memory like it hurt and helped. A stranger with a steady hand and a tired smile apologized as if she'd cracked a piece of glass I loved. It turned out to be the best part of my day. Imperfection has a way of telling the truth we've been rehearsing around. He spoke without the screen. Emma watched the prompter operator breathe again. He told them about messy beginnings and what emerges when control lets a little weather in. He threaded generosity through the room, citing programs, names, the reasons people gave when they didn't want their names mentioned at all. He did not defend himself. He did not preempt scandal. He gave the crowd a story that made them the protagonists, givers, not gawkers. In her ear, the floor tech whispered, "Stage right up, light flickering." "Swap it," Emma said. "No dark corners in this room." On cue, a server stumbled near the head table, liquid arcing, disaster rehearsed. Emma was already moving, like she'd been born with a sense for where the next spill would land. She intercepted with a linen folded twice, the arc caught by a gesture that looked like grace and was actually training. The server's eyes flooded. Emma squeezed her wrist, invisible and anchoring. The table never flinched. Across the room, cameras sighed, denied a moment. Adrian shifted from gratitude to spine. "You've read headlines," he said. "Some of them were written to sell you a feeling. Here's what I can offer instead." He lifted a hand, and the screens behind him came alive, not with his face, but with a simple timeline compiled by Legal and Mara, clean as an instrument. Vendor creation dates, badge tailgating footage blurred for privacy, payments traced through a shell to a familiar office. "We learned this week that someone tried to use a person in my orbit as a tool to make me look careless," he said. "They weren't. I wasn't. And we did our homework." A rustle. Chairs. Consciences. Emma watched Whitaker's jaw tighten in a way he probably practiced not to. At his table, the ambassador said, "Fascinating," in a tone that turned the word into stone. Adrian didn't say Whitaker's name. He didn't have to. He looked at the donors who had called him at midnight years ago when fear was a tide, and they lifted their glasses without instruction. Mrs. Dubois gave the slightest, most expensive nod Emma had ever seen. The room chose a side without being asked. Mara's voice. "Security sees a man near dimmer rack. Hoodie, not ours." "I'm on it," Emma said, already moving. The dimmer room hid behind a curtain. She slipped in and found him, cap low, hand reaching for a bank of faders that could turn the night into a blackout. "Staff only," she said, voice polite enough to pass for a joke, and slid between him and the board like a hostess offering a better table. He kept his head down and pushed against her shoulder. Emma pivoted, and the pressure met air instead of her bones. Her finger hit the all lock. The system beeped a small surrender. "Mara," she murmured. "Stage right, dimmer room, guest badge, now." 2 security staff materialized almost musically. The man twisted, slipped, and was gone with a speed that said training. "It's fine," Emma said, already checking the locks again. "They won't pull the lights." She returned to the wing with breath that didn't quite steady. Adrian found her shadow and drew reassurance from the angle of her shoulders. "You okay?" he asked, not moving his lips. "Better than your dimmers," she said. He almost laughed, and the line of his back loosened. He closed his speech with numbers that mattered, and one that didn't. 0. "That's how many apologies I owe for trusting my team and for believing in someone who did their job under fire," he said. "If you're looking for a scandal, I only have one. I choose people who make me better." Applause rose, not the polite kind, the kind with heat in it. He stepped back as the chair approached. Handshake choreography performed without politics' usual bite. In the crowd, a handful of phones tilted downward, as if embarrassment had weight. The MC segued into the auction with merciful speed. In the wing, Emma leaned against a column and let adrenaline bleed into a quiet that felt like earned ground. Mara drifted over, eyes bright. "You just out-hostaged a saboteur with a linen," she said. "I used hospitality as defense," Emma said, and Mara grinned like a woman who had been waiting her whole career to hear that sentence. "Ready?" Adrian asked from the podium's shadow, and his ready wasn't about stage cues. Emma nodded, and they walked out together because the next part needed both of them. He took the mic again. "There's one last note," he said, the crowd quieting not with boredom, but attention. "This evening began for me weeks ago when a stranger tore my sleeve and reminded me what real feels like." He looked at Emma fully then, no hiding. "Her name is Emma Rivera. She kept this night whole while some tried to crack it. She is not an accessory to a story about me. She is the story I want to tell with my life." Silence, the startled kind. Then the room broke. A sound like glass in reverse, shattering into applause that built and built until it stopped being approval and became relief. Cameras caught the mended cuff as he lifted his hand. Someone whistled. Mrs. Dubois dabbed the corner of her eye with something that had never been paper. Emma heard her heart bang its small drum and decided not to pretend it was anything else. She stepped forward, not to bask, but to stand without flinching. He didn't touch her. They had agreed. But proximity read like a vow anyway. She spoke into the second mic, voice steady. "Thank you for giving to what matters tonight," she said to the donors, then to him, "and for choosing the truth." The auctioneer took his cue, and the night moved on with that curious lightness that arrives after a pain names itself. Money was pledged with less greed and more grace than Emma usually saw. The band played too loud and then corrected. A reporter in the corner lowered her pen and simply watched. Backstage, Mara slipped a small envelope into Emma's hand. A printed note, approved, released, attaching the independent forensic report to the Foundation's press page, time-stamped and signed. "Documentation beats rumor," Mara said, satisfied. Lights softened. The room exhaled. Guests drifted toward the doors, smelling faintly of citrus and victory. Whitaker left quickly, his smile misbuttoned. The board chair shook Adrian's hand in a way that conceded daylight. It was not a dethroning. It was an acknowledgement. You kept the ship upright in public, which counts more than who hired the tailor. Emma stood at the edge of the dance floor and let the noise blur. Her phone buzzed. A photo from Michael in a hospital gown holding up a thumbs up. The TV behind him showing Adrian at the microphone, the caption, "He said your name like it mattered." She laughed wetly and wiped her face as if she'd smudged makeup she wasn't wearing. Adrian crossed the floor without hurry. He stopped a breath away, the cuff catching the light like a scar that had decided to be seen. "Are you all right?" he asked, finally allowing the private question to bloom in a public place. "I am," she said. "You?" "I am," he said, and the echo felt like a new language they'd learned together. He looked at the doors where donors left lighter than they'd arrived, at the stage where nothing had screamed, at the place where a man in a hoodie had failed to pull them into dark. "You saved my night. You saved your name," she said, "and you didn't sell mine to do it." He nodded once, sharp and grateful. "Come home," he said, then corrected with a smile that could be mistaken for nothing. "Let me take you home, you and Michael." The band began a slow song, old and warm. Emma held his gaze and didn't move and knew that moving would be simple. "After we pack up," she said, "there's always glass somewhere." "Then we'll find it," he said, and together they turned to the lingering work that makes aftermath beautiful. I had faced boardrooms filled with wolves, but nothing unnerved me like holding out that envelope to Emma in the quiet of Michael's clinic room. Inside was a trust, a safety net woven from years of careful work, meant to take the weight from her shoulders. She opened it slowly, read the first page, and then looked at me as though I had tried to cage her. "Adrian," she said softly, "this is too much." "It's not charity," I answered, my throat tight with the fear she might not understand. "It's a foundation, yours to shape if you want it, or to ignore. But I can't stand by and watch you stagger under burdens I can help carry. Stability is the least I can offer." For a moment, I thought she'd let me rescue her, and part of me wanted that simplicity. But Emma, my Emma, lifted her chin and met me with fire. "I can't just live in your shadow. If we're going to be together, it has to be as equals. I need to prove to myself I can stand on my own." Her words cut and healed in the same breath. I nodded, slowly, because I finally understood. "Then we'll grow together," I told her. "Not as rescuer and rescued, as partners. Whatever you build, I'll cheer for. Whatever I build, you'll keep me honest." The silence afterward felt like a vow spoken in a language only we knew. Weeks passed. Michael grew stronger, his doctors more hopeful than ever. The bills disappeared quietly into the systems I'd set in motion, but I never let Emma know the details. She deserved victories untouched by my name. She returned to the hotel part-time, proud, independent, and also began guiding projects through the foundation. Not because I asked, but because she wanted to. I would come home to find her poring over proposals, hair falling loose over her face, eyes lit with the kind of purpose that made me fall in love with her all over again. Sometimes she caught me staring, and she'd laugh. "You look like a man who finally learned what real means." And she was right. There were no fireworks now, no headlines, no cameras. Just quiet mornings when she brewed terrible coffee, but handed it to me with a smile, just evenings when Michael joined us for dinner and teased me until Emma laughed so hard she cried. Love didn't roar anymore. It settled. It steadied. It felt like home. I had built empires on control. But this surrender to love and partnership, was my greatest work. I looked at her one evening as she sat with Michael, their laughter echoing through the apartment. And I thought, if a torn sleeve was the doorway that led me here, then imperfection was the best fate I could have asked for. And now I ask you, do you believe true love begins with mistakes or with fate?